I felt
Hi.
like I just watched the second version of Interstellar.
That was great. Oops. Ah, there we go. Okay.
Wow, I was muted. So what you guys didn't hear is that Mark's open for questions.
This is Jack.
Jack, do you have a question? Dave, you have it. Certainly Dave has a question. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we got quite a delay in the audio here.
Oh, from me to you?
Yes.
Are you on the YouTube or are you on the
Oh, I'm on the Zoom.
Oh, well, that's interesting that there's such a delay because it seems right away for you. Well, just waiting for somebody to pose a question. If not, then I guess we can chat with Mark if he's up for it and call the meeting an end. By the way, Mark, I will get with you and I will make a short video of the things that didn't show up well in the presentation. And your Zoom is muted, Mark.
Yeah, sorry about that. And yeah, I think that was my fault. I failed to mention that I had other videos in there.
Yeah, well,
when we tested it.
Well, that's fine. I can upload it as a separate video and it'll work just fine.
Okay.
But the YouTube has me talking to nobody because I had my mic muted for Zoom, but not for YouTube.
Ah, okay.
So anyways, production problems, but it's not looking like anybody wants to ask a question.
We have a question on the chat, so let me type that in on the YouTube chat.
Oh, excellent.
So let me, it's from Reeb Feraldi. I'm going to put it in the, there is this weird delay. Reeb Feraldi asks, there you go. So she asked, on the fireballs reported by U.S. government sensors chart, are the negative values drag pressure produced by the fireball? That is the question.
Can you read that again? I'm not sure I understood it.
Okay. On the fireballs reported by U.S. government sensors chart, are the negative values drag pressure produced by the fireball?
No, let's see, if I remember right, there was a scale on there which was a log in some units, and I don't remember what the units were, but I think that it was a logarithmic scale, and so there was a negative there, it crossed the zero, and so it's not negative numbers, it's just small numbers that have a negative log in the units that they were given in, which actually I can rewind. I have the presentation up and I can go back and look at it if you'll give me.
I think it was in kilotons.
I think that's a good answer. I've typed that into the
okay,
chat
it's log
back on
kiloton.
YouTube.
Yeah, it's log in kilotons. And so the lowest one, that's impact energy. So that's kinetic energy. And the way they do it is they have a total integrated brightness. So they know how many, so from the bang meters, they know how much visible radiation was emitted. And then there is an estimate, so I mentioned that nuclear explosions release a lot more energy as photons than asteroid explosions do. And so there's a range, and it does correlate with size. And so they do an estimate, and it's something like between 10 and 20% of the explosive energy goes out as radiation. And so, because they know the amount of energy that went out as radiation, they can approximate the total energy, and that's what that scale bar is. In kilotons, in the logarithm of kiloton. You have to do it as a logarithm. So all those bubbles on that chart, they're color coded and they're size coded. And if you actually made it a linear scale, the biggest one would cover everything up and you wouldn't be able to see the small ones. It has to be logarithmic because there's such a huge range.
Okay, we have another question from the YouTube. So I'm putting that in the chat. It's from Will Keener, who says, Mark, did the change in the size of Bears Ears National Monument last year affect the status of the Moonhouse site?
I don't think so. So Obama, I think it was I think it may have been his very last executive order before he left office. And I think it was the very end of 2016. It was right after we went there, in fact. He declared Bears Ears to be a national monument. That didn't sit well with some people. Trump came into office a week or two after that, or 3. And Trump caved to political pressure and he reduced the size of it. The Moonhouse location, as far as I know, is still in the National Monument. I think it's all still, I think there's still a National Monument. I think it's just much smaller. It's still protected. It was already a historical site, a designated historical site. And in fact, the guy, Don Simonis, who I mentioned, who turned me on to this idea that the Moonhouse had something to do with eclipses at that Pecos conference in 2015. He was one of the people who spearheaded making that a national historical site. So he was very familiar with it. And that's why he knew, when he found out that there were eclipses, he knew what the age of those timbers were that were used in construction. So it is protected, but yeah, it's a shame, and I hope Biden restores it to the Obama National Monument when he takes office in January.
Hi, Mark. This is Becky Rice.
Hi, Becky.
How are you?
Good.
I have a question regarding the sun dagger at Chaco Canyon. One of the things I noticed about it is that it indicates both equinoxes and solstice. Is there anything at the Moonhouse that would indicate the same thing?
I don't know. And I don't think there's been a lot of interest in the Moonhouse. I don't think there's been a lot of research. And I'm not, I'm a complete amateur when it comes to this sort of thing. We went there. The only time I'd been there was that October 22nd, 2016 adventure. And I didn't see anything that was obvious. I didn't see we were like, I was throwing dust so I could see the beams, and I was like watching where they went. And it's like, well, if they built this thing, they couldn't predict eclipses. So they didn't know eclipse was coming, but maybe it was under construction, maybe it was built by then. And then if they saw another eclipse, maybe they would have pecked something in the wall to record it, but I didn't see anything like that. But I haven't been there on the solstice. I haven't been there on the equinox. And I don't know if anybody's tried to do that. I kind of suspect somebody's tried to do it, but I haven't seen anything. And I'm not a professional at this, and I'm not really that plugged in. I know there is a guy at Los Alamos that I haven't met. I don't know if he's still there, but there's something called, I mentioned it in my astronomy magazine story. It's called Rock Calendar Project or something like that. And he's very much interested in creating solid models and working out where there might be a display of some astronomical event. I mean, most of the ones that get displayed are going to be equinoxes and solstices, because those are just the most notable. But I don't know if there are any. That's one of the reasons I want to go back, just to see. But I'm not, I'm not any. I don't do this at a professional level. It's like, okay, if it's obvious, it's going to jump out at you, I think.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions for Mark?
I see there's a question that came in from Jack, chat. There is a several second. Oh, okay. That's not okay. I would think that the glass in the Libyan desert is being harvested for its value, but have not seen it being offered commercially. I think I have. I think you can buy it on eBay, and I think they do sell it at gem and mineral shows. It's definitely being harvested for its value. When we went in 2006, we had there was a sort of a tourist outfitter that took us, and they're super protective. Just like, I mean, anytime you go to a coral reef or any kind of ecotourism, usually the outfitters are more protective than just about anybody, because that's their business. And so I did pick up some pieces, but I was very limited in what I took. And they actually had an armed guard with them. The Egyptian government required that an armed guard to go with you and make sure that you're not like a major collector. And I heard stories of people who'd been out there that had, like, they were filling 55-gallon drums with this stuff. But the outfitters have said since they started doing it, probably 50% of the stuff that was there is now gone. They have taken to burying stuff. So they dig holes, and they, whenever they find something really good or like a really good spot, they collect it all up and they dig a hole, they throw it in a hole and bury it. But they GPS it and they know where to look. So they come back with tourists and they dig it up to show them, and then they put it back and bury it again. I mean, it's not a renewable resource, but in some sense it kind of is, because you have these big giant dunes, and those dunes are moving, and they are moving over the top. So they're as those dunes move, and I don't, it's only a few meters a year or something, but new stuff comes out. But still, it's just like everything, there's too many people and too many people exploiting non-renewable resources, including treasures like this. But I don't know how you stop it. I mean, the blessing is that it's super remote, and it's right along the Libyan border, and it's not really that safe of a place to be. And I don't think they're running tours out there. I think since the Arab Spring, I think all that is pretty much ground to a halt.
Okay, I have one. I was in Barbados in probably around the summer solstice in 2002. And it was a beautiful evening. We're sitting out on the beach, and this gorgeous view of the sky. And I see this fireball flashing through the sky and disappearing, and nobody saw it but me. I know I didn't dream it. And I didn't ask a lot of people because I didn't know anybody, but Bill nor my son nor my husband saw it. But do we have records of all these fireballs? Do we know we've got them all recorded, or we just had our best guess?
No, we don't. And the small ones are not recorded or kept. I mean, I don't know how big this one was, but if other people didn't see it, it probably wasn't big enough. And that was a day you said that was at sunset. The sky was still light.
No, it was dark. It was
dark. Okay.
Had just become dark. It was wonderful, a beautiful evening. It was our first night there.
Yeah, I think the ones that I showed on this the bubble chart with the colored circles from JPL, anything on there, if that had happened in the sky over you, nobody would have missed it. It would have lit up the entire sky. It would have been like a nuclear explosion going off over your head, although it
You
was
mean
far
if-
enough away.
You
That,
mean if it had burned up at that point? Yeah,
yeah,
because I just figured it dropped into the ocean. I don't know.
probably not. Probably, yeah. If it was anything that's big enough to hit the ground or produce meteorites, is usually a pretty big display when it blows up in the sky. They don't all blow up. Sometimes they just ablate and slow down, and the last little piece drops.
Well,
Anything else?
any other questions for Mark? Well,
Mark,
I'm not
thank you
hearing any
very
speak up.
much.
Good.
So-
Well, I'm
Yeah, it was
glad.
very fun.
Glad to do it. Yeah. Yeah. And then sorry I haven't been more engaged with CESE. It's a great organization. I'm glad that I at least was a cheerleader when it first started. I was looking at the website and it was sad that like so many of the original founders are gone now, or the early Tim Moy and Marshall, of course. Yeah, I miss them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I miss them a lot too.
Yep.
All right. Well, if there are no more questions, I will point out that Mark was one of the founding members of CESE. Again, if you want more content like this, and I will get better at production as time goes on, hit the like button and hit subscribe, even if you're just watching this as a playback. And by the way, for
Yeah.
everybody who's wondering, yes, this will remain up on YouTube. And I will get together with Mark to get those videos up. And
Okay.
I will put a link in the description. It doesn't have to be today, but fairly soon so that it's still fresh.
I
in
should have.
people's
I regret that I didn't think to announce this, but it is Asteroid Day, and Asteroid Day is all week this year. Normally, we're in Luxembourg for Asteroid Day Live, and those two videos that are missing are going to be on the Asteroid Day panel. Those were the two that actually I ended up sending them, and so you can put them up. I mean, we can do it both ways. But they will be shown on Tuesday on Asteroid Day. They've got programming all week. So go to asteroidday.org, and they've got stuff streaming right now, but it will be on the 30th, the anniversary of Tunguska, that they have what they call Asteroid Day Live, because it's been live broadcast from Luxembourg for the last 3 years. And they didn't want to change the name, even though this year it's a lie. It's not live. We pre-recorded everything.
Oh, all right. Well,
I
thank-
have a comment I'd like to make if I can. I'm a retired scientist from Sandia, and I actually worked with Mark about 25 years ago briefly. And I reminded him that I think at Marshall's memorial service, Marshall was a friend of mine. But since I retired from Sandia, I've been more active in community affairs, and I'm currently the chair of the Police Oversight Board in Albuquerque. So if you're looking for another application of some scientific, if you have some scientific skills or math skills, it's amazing. I think physical science and the ability to do analysis is a really important aspect of improving policing. And there's certainly a lot of social science and very good social science is done in terms of policing, but there's always room for people who have analytic abilities, and that's one of the things that police oversight movement in the country is about bringing science or scientific method, essentially doing database policing, looking at what you do to see that it's effective, and that it's, as long as and other things that it's also not ineffective, it's not counterproductive. So there's lots of opportunity if you're interested in an activity that has reward in terms of community input and a personal reward that you feel like that you're doing something for the community, especially in these days. I'd encourage you to look at the efforts that are being made in terms of oversight here in Albuquerque, and the
Okay.
changes in the police department that,
Well, yeah, if you could send me some information, and I mean, on that kind of on a related topic, I've been very active on this nextdoor.com, which is, it's kind of a clunky version, social media. Their interface isn't very good. But unlike Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the big ones, their architecture is entirely different in a couple of key ways, which I think makes it much more useful for any kind of local social activism, science education, all the kinds of things that CSE is interested in, and NMSR. So the way it's structured is neighborhoods are only linked to nearby neighborhoods. So unless you form a group, if you just look at the general feed, you only get posts from people who live within a couple miles of you. That's one aspect that's really good. The next aspect is people have to use their real names. You have to be a real person. You have to, in order to get an account, you have to prove somehow, they send you a postcard is usually the way they do it. And then there's a code on the postcard, but you have to have a physical address and you have to use your real name. Okay, so you can immediately see that gets rid of, Russian trolls, homegrown trolls, multiple accounts, people who are just there to make trouble. I mean, there are people that are there to make trouble, but they have to use their real names. So, and 3, there is some level of fact checking and moderation, and Nextdoor, to its credit, has taken a very hard line about misinformation about coronavirus, misinformation about elections. I can't remember what the third, there's 3 they highlight. I can't remember what the third one is now, but any kind of dangerous misinformation that hurts a community, they nip in the bud. They don't, they try to there's rules against things like soapboxing, and, people for the most part try to stay within the lines, although people go right up to the edge and some people cross them, and you can get away with crossing them, but you can't get away with it over and over and over. And so I've actually created groups, and Nextdoor just started allowing groups to be created that are visible to entire cities or metropolitan areas. So the groups can get pretty big, and you can join a group and now make connections with people that don't live in a nearby neighborhood. So I think I'm the moderator of like 5 groups now. And one of them, there's a coronavirus one that's gotten up to 500 people, and people from all over, people downtown, and you actually start making connections to like-minded people around town. So I think it's underutilized for local social activism, local science or education. I mean, I could see, a science education group would be a very, very good group that you all might want to think about forming. I don't think I want to moderate a 6th group, but I would definitely join it and support it. So I recommend everybody get on Nextdoor, join my groups, create another group, create an NMSR group or a CESE group, or just a general science, I have one of my groups is called Listen to Experts, and it's really, it's about COVID-19 and overcoming misinformation and figuring out how to encourage people to wear masks and social distance and do all those things that some people don't want to do. So I can think of a lot of different groups that others might want to form, and you're probably going to see a lot of the same people on a lot of the groups, but these are people who care, but I think you can get things done because you can encourage, for example, members of the homeowners associations to join. You can engage with local leaders, and I think it's just another way, but it's not like Facebook. where there's fake people and there's people butting in and there's people just causing trouble. It's not like that. And if you own a group, you can throw people out of it. Anyway,
Well,
so if you have an Nextdoor account, let me know, and I can send you links to the groups and help you create your own group if you want to do that.
okay, I'm sure people will keep that offer in mind.
Yeah,
And
I've
What's
joined
your
the,
contact information, Mark?
I'm sorry?
What's your contact information?
Oh, the best, I have a hard time checking more than one email address. I have more than one, but the one that I check daily, more than daily, is my UNM one, mbeb@unm.edu. I've had it for like 25 years. So if you have an email address for me, it's that one, mbeb, like Mark Boslough, E is in Echo Boslough.
okay, well,
unm.edu.
unm.edu.
Thank you.
I put it in the chat too.
Right.
Okay.
I joined the Nextdoor, and I joined the Socorro group, and I'm, we're getting messages about events here in Socorro, so that's kind of neat.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things, there are troublemakers, don't get me wrong, there are troublemakers on Nextdoor, but they're a pretty small minority, and there needs to be more reasonable people, because you can shut them down. You can literally get them kicked off, and I have done that if they get too far out of line. Or, if they're trying to stay between the lines, you can pretty much just say, here are the facts. And you don't have to get in one of these flame wars like people do on Twitter or Facebook, I mean, I don't do that on Facebook. I just delete people. And I unfriended anybody who and most of my posts on Facebook are now to only my friends. So it's just not worth it.
all right. Well, if there are no more questions,
I have a question, please.
Oh, Ken has a question.
Yeah, so I watched this documentary on the fellow who was titled Mr. Tornado. And I noticed he got his start with the nuclear explosion over Hiroshima and was showing photos of one tree totally erect, the shaft,
Yeah.
branches, okay, and then all the other trees laid out flat on the ground in this kind of a circle. So I noticed that in one of your photos too. Is that the thing?
That's a thing, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And it was actually pretty well understood pretty early on by the Russian investigators. The Russians referred to those. There wasn't just one. There's a whole area, acre or more, of erect trees. All the branches are stripped off. They call them telegraph poles because that's what they look like, telegraph poles. And it's because the explosion was 8 kilometers up. Something, it was in above the tropopause. And so think of a point explosion. I mean, it wasn't a point explosion, but you think of an explosion, the shock wave directly underneath at the epicenter. Well, the shock wave's coming directly above. There's no lateral force. There's a vertical force.
Right.
And behind so there's an overpressure followed by a big slug of compressed air that's moving at very high speed with very high dynamic pressure. And so when it's moving straight down, it's just stripping the branches off, maybe stripping some bark off, but because there's nothing to push the tree over, you have a naked tree standing there afterwards. And then as it moves outward, the farther your range is from the epicenter, the larger the horizontal component is of that blast wave and the slug behind it that's got momentum and pushes. And so then the farther you get away, there's some sweet spot where the dynamic pressure maxes out, and that's where the trees are all down.
So-
And then as you go out farther, the shot gets weaker, and so only the weaker trees or the trees that happen to be like on an upslope or something that magnifies the wave. And then of course there's also the Mach stem amplification from that. So it's not super simple, but it's pretty simple to explain why they're standing up at the center. Yeah.
It's the same thing then as some of the things you're speaking of. You get the same effect.
Very similar. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was Tunguska, but yeah, a nuclear explosion would do the same thing. Only the nuclear explosion would have a lot more thermal radiation and stuff would burst into flame too.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Fascinating presentation. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you.
Yes.
I have a
it's
question.
A little unusual to I don't know how the like Stephen Colbert and those guys do it, because they're used to saying in front of big audiences and getting reactions. How do they time their jokes if they don't get a reaction?
He was a disaster the first couple of shows, and I got disgusted. But great to see you again from our environmental days, man.
Thank you.
Mark,
Ken, I have a question for Ken. Are you on the YouTube? Are you Rezon 1043?
Yes, that's me. So just ignore my little business.
Yeah. So the problem you had on YouTube was that you must have had two things: the Zoom and the YouTube, and that's why you got crosstalk.
We're still streaming. We can take care of this outside of the stream.
Yeah. No, I figured it out.
Wait. We're still streaming live to YouTube, and everybody's going to hear all this discussion.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's kind of back off on that. Are there any other questions for Mark?
I have a question, but I'd like to do it on Zoom, and people can leave if they wish, except for Dave.
Okay.
This has to do with an observation I made a number of years ago, and I've never been able to explain it. It was driving down the street. Actually driving east on Constitution, somewhere around from San Mateo on in the evening, just getting dark, looking up in the sky and seeing this bright light, and it just sat there, and it was very, very bright. And I thought it was an airplane coming in for a landing, or and just happened to be on the approach path or something. And no, there's no approach coming from that direction. And it lasted. I drove about 5 or 6 blocks, and at the end of that, it went, and I got see red and green sparks like a pinwheel almost. And so I sat back and did what you did. Said, there's got to be a natural explanation for this. Yeah. And the only thing I could think of was that there was indeed some sort of object coming in very fast. And at the end with the red and green sparks was its final disintegration. But it lasted for probably at least 90 seconds, maybe 120 seconds. Any thoughts?
Well, if it lasted that long, it was going, from a cosmic perspective, it was going very slow.
Right.
But satellite reentries where they're coming in, and atmospheric drag is slowing them down, and they're only starting off at orbital velocity, which is like 7 kilometers per second or so. Whereas, an asteroid, a meteor coming in is more than twice that and coming in steeper. So the combination of going slow and going sideways can make something last a couple minutes. I don't think it's unusual for a satellite reentry to be visible for a couple minutes. And if it happens to be coming straight toward you,
great.
Then, although I would think, it's not going to be, if it's coming straight toward you, that implies that it's actually descending, unless it's really far away. If it's just because it's skimming through the atmosphere, it's moving horizontally. But just from the geometry, if you're standing on the ground and something's moving horizontally and it's actually horizontally where it is, which is not your horizontal, it's going to probably look like it's rising its elevation angle is going to be increasing if it's coming straight toward you.
Yeah, it just stayed in one spot. That's what puzzled me. I was saying, boy,
Yeah.
other
I mean,
people
it
saw
might
it
be
too.
that the elevation angle is rising so slowly that you don't really discern it, especially if you're in a moving vehicle and you don't have any really good steady reference points that if you were like stable and on the ground and, looking through a window or something with a frame, then you could see how it was moving relative to fixed objects. But in a car, it might have looked like it was stationary, but maybe actually wasn't. It was just moving so slow in a angular sense that you didn't really notice. It just felt like it was stationary. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I kind of fuzzed over those things before. Yeah, you're always looking for a magic answer right away.
I mean, the way to if you could remember exactly when it was, and you could go online, because they do. There are, there are organizations that publish satellite reentries and whatnot. I mean,
This was years ago.
Well, it wouldn't have. Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, you see the ISS go by, and it's super bright. We saw one of those. Dave had the table, and we went out on the deck in MSR and watched one of those go over, but it wouldn't have exploded into sparks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hope not. Oh, that was just an aside, almost, Mark.
Yeah, no, but but it goes along with this. I mean, to me, those things, it's way more fascinating to try to actually figure out what something was than to just say, oh, it's aliens.
Yeah.
It's like, because there's an infinite number of ways you can be wrong, and there's only one way you can be right. And how is it fun to, it's like going to the beach and it's like, I found a grain of sand. It's like, no, I want to find something cool. The one thing that really is special, I want to find that. And that right answer is special.
Absolutely. Where are we going to Sadie's now?
I don't know. It's Sadie's.
I wish we could.
I know. I'm very, very conservative in my risk.
We're high risk, Mark.
Yeah.
No Sadie's.
Yeah, I'll wait.
Yeah.
Yep.
There'll be a time.
There will be a time.
Okay.
All right. Well,
All right.
since
Wrap it
Mark
up.
likes aliens,
Oh.
there you go. I guess we can end this show on a meme. Mark,
Yeah,
thank you
there.
very much for going to the effort of putting the presentation together and spending time with us, as terrible
Oh.
as we are.
No, it's great.
But
Well, what do we see? What is that? I can't tell what it is.
it says it's got the aliens guy that was on the History Channel.
Oh, the same guy.
Yeah, and it says, it's captioned, "I'm not saying it was
Oh no,
aliens."
I was
It was
looking
aliens.
at Ken. Ken was showing us his
Oh.
T-shirt, and it was
Oh,
that the
oh.
same guy.
But
Oh,
No,
okay.
it's-
Oh,
Ken's got Albert
Einstein.
Einstein.
okay. I
right.
couldn't see. Yeah.
Starry Einstein.
Well, I'm going to call that a streaming show, and I'm going to thank everybody who watched and everybody who comes through and watches this all the way to the end. And again, thank you very much, Mark. I
Thanks,
keep on
Jesse.
looking at you on my other monitor, which is away from the webcam, but looks kind of funny.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you got to practice this on me, and it's like I think we'll get better at it as we go. I think we're probably
Hope
going to
so.
be doing this for a while, and it's good to have an opportunity to learn from mistakes. And next
Oh,
time,
absolutely.
I'll make sure I'll tell you how many videos I have.
Oh, I had the sound off for YouTube. Anyways, I'm ending the show. Thanks for watching all the way to the end and putting up with my production mistakes. I'm not very well practiced at this for viewers, but I will get better if I keep on doing it.
That was a marvelous introduction, Jesse. That really
It was, yeah.
mentioned. That was fantastic. He worked on it for a long time.
That was
Sure
good.
was.
All right, so the stream,
All right.
stream is stopped.
Yeah,
okay.
When you get
Shalom.
in stream.
All right. We have a new board. We have a
All right,
all righty.
and I can take these off. Ugh.
All right. So is it okay for me to pull the plug, everybody?
Oh, fine with me.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming. This has been our 2020 annual meeting of the CESE, Coalition for Excellence in Science and Math Education. Signing off from Fitch Hall in Socorro, New Mexico. Hope you all are safe wherever you are. Take care, everybody, and use your masks. Okay. Take care.